Hello, I'm Lindsay Whitley, the Associate Superintendent for Communications and Community Engagement with Cumberland County Schools. Thank you so much for joining us for our Throwback Thursday edition of Cumberland Family Academy. Each week, we look forward to bringing you timely information and resources to help your child succeed in school and in life. Now, let's jump right into tonight's session, already in progress.
And thank you for joining us for building and maintaining healthy financial habits. So the objectives that we have tonight, we're going to talk about money decisions. We're going to talk about creating a budget, the cost of debt, creating a plan to eliminate debt, and then financial suggestions. All right, and Ms. George has already talked about the workshop guidelines. So first, I'm going to start off with a presentation disclaimer. The opinions expressed in this presentation are for general, educational, and informational purposes only, and are not intended to provide specific financial advice. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things tonight, but we're going to hit them at a high level and not necessarily go to any type of confidential client advising. Okay? All right, money decisions. Money decisions are never just about money. So I'm going to start off the presentation tonight reading a story, and it's from Max Lucado's book, Cure for the Common Life. So I'm going to read the story out of the chapter, Don't Consult Your Greed. Okay? A businessman bought popcorn from an old street vendor each day after lunch. He once arrived to find the peddler closing up his stand at noon. "Is something wrong?" he asked the peddler. A smile wrinkled the seller's leathery face. "Well, by no means. All is well." "Well, then why are you closing your popcorn stand?" "Well, so I can go home to my house, sit on my porch, and sip tea with my wife." The man of commerce objected. "But the day is still young. You can still sell popcorn." "Well, no need to," the stand owner replied. "Well, I have made enough money for today." "Well, enough? Well, that's absurd. You should keep working." Well, the spry old man stopped and stared at his well-dressed visitor. "And why should I keep working?" "Well, but to sell more popcorn." Where is your focus in life? Do not let anyone be in charge of your focus but you. Are you looking ahead? Are you always looking in the rear view mirror? Right? A lot of times we are the product of our environment. So when you think about your current financial situation, what comes to mind first? Are you thinking about your next big purchase? Are you sitting there thinking, "Man, I can't wait to get that 55-inch TV, and I'm going to put that thing on my charge card as soon as I get my balance down below my limit"? Do you picture yourself on the beach at your next vacation? Do you picture yourself driving around in your new car? Do you think about the next big house you want to live in? Are you continually thinking about all your financial mistakes that you've made in the past? Or are you ready to truly plan for your future? Okay, so what is your attitude about money? The most valuable asset that you have in life is your attitude. Do you feel like that you have to own more things? Is it about keeping up with the Joneses? Do you have the attitude that more is better, regardless of what it's going to cost you in the long run? What is your attitude towards money? When you wake up in the morning, are you ready to tackle the day and set yourself up for to be financially successful? What about your financial security? Do you wake up every day and have solid financial security? All right. So I want to encourage you to take an inventory of your blessings. So these two pictures, as you can see in the center, they kind of overlap each other, but it is from a trip that I took when I was 24 years old. I went on a missions trip with my church to Costa Rica. And while we were in Costa Rica over there, just ministering to the people on a missions trip, we went to a village, and this was the neighborhood. And as you can see, what they did there is they found scrap. So they found scrap cardboard and made a little home out of it. They found scrap tin and made little homes out of it. So as you look and see, they really took whatever materials they could find and just made a little dwelling. And for me, this was very eye-opening. So I want to tell you my backstory. My dad was in the military, and we traveled all over, from the time I was little. I remember going from base to base, and we never really had a lot of money. My mom was a stay-at-home mother, and there were 6 children. And so, up until this point, all I could dream about was, oh, I can't wait to move out and start my own family and have a home. And I wanted a house big enough that I could have my own area and not have anybody bothering me, because my siblings, I was the oldest of 6, and they just got on my nerves. So, I just had this goal in life to have a big house, where we all had our own space, and I could have some peace and quiet. And then I went on this mission trip, and it changed my perception. When I realized that there were people in other parts of the world living in these little bitty cardboard made houses or scrap tin with a floor that was just dirt, with no running water, with no bathroom, no kitchen, no electricity, boy, did my perception change. My family was not rich by any means, but my parents always found a way to meet our needs. They never really gave us our wants. Basically, at Christmas time, we chose 3 or 4 things that we wanted for Christmas, and we made up a little list, and we might get a couple things off the list. But if we wanted something, the minute we turned 16, we had to go get a job, and we had to buy it with our own money. So if I had an Izod shirt, or if I had any kind of name brand piece of clothing, it was because I went and worked fast food and I bought it myself. So basically, it took me 6 years to get my 4-year degree. That's because my father and my mother got married very young. My dad was 17. He went and joined, he got permission and got his dad to sign off so he could join the military. And he went off to Vietnam. And he and my mother got married when they were 19. And then my father, though he was a wonderful provider, he never had a degree, never went to college. That was later on in life that he decided to pursue some education, and he became a warrant officer. But I had no guidance as far as what to do when it came to school. So I just, at 19, 20 years old, I did the best that I could do. Basically, I went to the guidance counselor. I was able to get a 2-year, I guess it was a scholarship at Fayetteville Tech. I didn't have to pay at all because I had very good grades. And then financially, I qualified financially for the scholarship. And so I went there my first 2 years. But after that, because there were 5 other children at home and I was the oldest of 6, my parents had no money at all to send me to college. So it was at that point that I took a full-time job and started paying my own way through school. And because my dad had never gotten an education, neither one of my parents knew how to help me. And so, off I went, just making the best decisions I knew how to make when I was 19, 20 years old. And I was able to get my degree in 6 years. All right, obstacles to sound financial planning. All right, do you have social pressures to own possessions? Do you have an emergency set up to take care of unexpected expenses? When you're pulling out your credit cards, are you covering your wants and not your needs? I mean, these are things you need to think about every single day when you get up and start your day. So back when on the last picture, we were talking about that missions trip I went on, all of a sudden, what I was longing for, I realized I was so blessed beyond measure because I wasn't living in one of those little bitty huts with no electricity, no bathroom, no windows. I was blessed beyond measure. And I guess that's one of the things I really want to point out tonight is when you're looking at your life financial goals, are you living within your means? So a lot of times we have to make a decision when we go to pull out that credit card or we go to buy something at the store. A need is something that is necessary for your basic needs, such as food, clothing, or a place to live. But a lot of times we want to use credit because we want to fulfill our wants. So some of our wants are things that are not necessary, to live and have a full life, but they're things that we want, like a new car versus an old car or a used car. So what we need to do if we really truly want to take control of our finances is we need to create a budget where we are spending less than what we make each month. So when you get to the point where your monthly income is consumed by monthly expenses, you're going to find yourself in debt. So I do have an undergraduate degree in business and finance. It's a business degree with an emphasis in accounting from Campbell University. And so though I had the financial knowledge of how to do a budget, financial planning, that was only my college education, but I was too young at that point when I finished school. When my husband and I met, I was finishing up college and I was getting ready to graduate. I truly did not understand how to apply that knowledge. And true financial wisdom comes with time. So though I had book knowledge, I had no true wisdom. I had not really even lived yet. Okay. So when we got married, I explained to you that I had to work full time and put myself through school. That's how I ended up getting my bachelor's degree. So at that point, I made the mistake of we got married, but before I knew it, and of course, my husband is 4 years older than I am, we found ourselves in $25,000 worth of debt. So now it wasn't bad debt. I mean, we didn't have any money saved up because basically we both put ourselves through school. His father was also in the military. We both had to work full time in order to get our college degrees. And so every penny I made at my full-time job went to pay the university for my tuition. And same thing with him. So when we got married, we assumed a mortgage from somebody. It was somebody in the military. They were moving, changing duty stations, and they just needed to get out of the house. So we assumed their mortgage. So there's one debt. And of course, we were driving old beat up cars, that we had. My parents got me a car when I graduated high school, but I had to make the car payments. So they only gave me money for a down payment, but I had to take over making the payments. Same thing for my husband. He had to provide his own car. So when we got married, we found that our cars were pretty much given out. We had driven them and we needed another car. So of course we each got a car, and then we had our little condo. It really wasn't even a house to begin with. It was a townhouse. So it wasn't a standalone house, and we had our condo. And so, our condo needed furniture. So we had no furniture. So we needed a couch and a chair and a table. and bedroom furniture. So that contributed to our $25,000 of debt. And then we needed household items. So we did have some, showers where we got some plates and cups and different things like that. But, they don't necessarily, when someone gives you a shower, you don't necessarily get everything you need. So out came the credit card. And before you knew it, we were $25,000 in debt. And so the point I want to make tonight is you are the product of your desires. And so, I wanted, that nice little white picket fence with everything that went with it. And of course, what it cost me was financial freedom because I found myself in debt to my credit card. So I got disgusted. I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, and I just got so tired of every time my check came in and I got my money for working, it had to go out to pay some type of debt, some type of credit. So I decided, okay, I am going to put this degree and the knowledge that I gained, I'm going to put it to good use. All right. So one of the things I do want to point out that if you are married, right, or you have a significant other, or you're working together, and you pay household items together, you pay the bills together, you got to make sure you include your spouse. So when you decide to have a plan in place, it's not going to do any good if only one of you is willing to commit to the budget process and to actually monitor your spending. So you need to be in agreement. I will tell you one thing, my husband and I are two different types of personalities. And if you've met him before, he's real fun loving, very easygoing. He, likes to crack jokes. He's the opposite of me. I'm very studious. I love to read. He's the one who brings excitement and joy into my life, and so I have to be really careful because I cannot nickel and dime my husband to death. He is very free-spirited. So if I were to tell him, you only get $2.50 today, or you can have $5 to spend at lunch and you have to go use the dollar menu, he's gonna choke me. So, I had to be really careful when we sat down and came up with the budget because it needed to be something we both agreed with. All right. And so basically what we did was when we created our budget, we sat down and we had to decide, okay, what are we going to do to get out of debt? We had a choice. We could either make more money or spend less. And so my question for you today is, what are you going to do? Do you want to come up with a way to make more money or spend less, or do you want to do both? Okay. So a lot of times when I'm looking to buy something, and I started this years ago, I have to ask myself, okay, do I love what I'm getting ready to buy? Am I really going to use what I'm getting ready to buy? And if I bought it now, would I buy it again? Because one of the things I've learned over these years is a lot of times, I buy it, I'm happy with it for a couple months or a couple weeks, but then it just loses its luster. And I really don't even care whether I have it or don't have it. So, that's something I've realized over the years is really you're just accumulating stuff. So you really have to decide how bad you want it. So when we're creating a budget is an estimate of all the monthly income and expenses that you have going on in your household, right? And we just talked about what is your present spending. What exactly are you spending your money on? So you have to come up with a very realistic picture of this. It's not going to do any good if you don't really sit down and list everything out, what you think you're spending, and then actually set it and compare it against a budget and monitor it every month. Okay, so it really requires a method that you put in place to track your dollars. All right, so here's an example. All right, so creating a budget, step one. You need to determine the income or the wages, what you have coming into your home. Okay, so you can have, there's lots of different types of income, and I'm just using a very simple little example. But other than wages, and this is just for like a single person, I just did something real simple. You could have investments that are paying you dividends, or you have a little bit of money coming in from your investments. You may have child support coming in into the home that will help you. You could have a second job, or you may have a business that you do on the side. Like, let's say you sell Mary Kay, or you decide to do consulting on the side when you're off work. So there's lots of different ways and different types of income that you can have coming into your home. The second thing you need to do is you need to determine what exactly is coming out of your checks, your income every month. So we're all liable to pay federal taxes, most of us. So we're going to have that deduction coming out of our check. We're going to have state taxes coming out of our check, to help support North Carolina. Social Security is going to come out of our check because that helps support the seniors that we have, and provide retirement for them. Depending on where you work, if you work and are a state employee, you'll have state retirement. And also, if you work for a company, they may actually have a 401k plan where they will actually match and provide money, to help build up your retirement fund in a 401k plan. This health insurance area, that may be benefits. So you always have to consider what kind of benefits that you have coming out. Their employee benefits at work. So it may be health insurance. It could be dental. It could be eye. It could be life insurance. You may have a policy of life insurance through work. And then the other thing is any type of charity that you want to give to. If you want to, let's say you decide to make a United Way pledge. And so you could have that coming out. So you want to make sure that you account for money coming out of your check. All right. Step 3 of your budget is you have to determine your fixed expenses. And the reason why I'm calling them fixed is you're pretty much going to have the same expense every single month. So it's normal to see this type of expense each month. Okay. So you may have a housing expense, whether you own a home or whether you're renting. You're going to have to pay someone for a place to live. You'll have electricity. You're going to have a grocery bill. So you're going to have food. All right. You're going to have household supplies like toiletries, trash bags, shampoo, those kind of things. 9 times out of 10, all of us have cell phones. Nowadays, you just really can't seem to get along without a cell phone, a car payment, because you need transportation. A lot of us have school loans that we've taken out to be able to get our education and in our degrees to help us make a living. Gas for the car, credit cards. A lot of people have credit cards. You have to have insurances. So car insurance. You can have homeowners and property insurance, which is the property. Then you also pay property taxes on if you own a home or if you're buying a home. Trash service. If you are renting, you'll have renter's insurance. You may have a separate life insurance policy. So it's very important that you consider and think about all your fixed expenses when you're creating your budget. All right. The next type of expense that we have is variable expense. So these are expenses that will fluctuate. They're not necessarily the same expenses that you're going to see every single month. So sometimes it will be like vacation. A lot of times you may go on vacation once or twice a year, so you're not going to see that every single month. Clothing. You may not necessarily go out and buy clothing every single month. And so you need to consider and think about how much money you should put to these expenses that you may not necessarily have every month, and then put that as part of your budget as well. All right, so there's lots of things that you can do when you want to look at reducing your expenses, and we'll talk about that later. But I can tell you, every spouse, you need to work together as a team when you're coming up with all of this stuff, because you need buy-in from both individuals in the home. Okay. And then the last step that you're going to do is you're going to actually look at your income coming into your home. You're going to subtract all of your expenses and your taxes and whatever you plan to give to charity. And that's going to give you your unallocated surplus, okay? And your unallocated surplus are funds that you can use to pay off your debt. And as you can see in this example, this is just a really simple little example. After I made the estimates, and I came up with, for a monthly surplus of $9.75 and an annual surplus of $197. So obviously that's not a lot of surplus. All right. So the last part of creating your budget is you want to come up with a way to track your budget. And so you're going to look at your actual income and your actual expenses, and then you're going to compare it to the budget you've come up with. So you're going to have your budgeted income and budget expenses. Now, most of the time, your income is going to be the same for what's budgeted or what's actual. But, like this year, we actually, have gotten some surplus money from the stimulus checks. Some individuals have received stimulus checks because of COVID. So you may have some money that has come in that's unexpected. But there's lots of different ways to track your actual expenses against your budgeted expenses. So I've used all of these different ways. When I first started out, which was in my late 20s, I would use pen and paper, and we sat down and we just did everything, by hand. And of course, I had to, I always looked over it with my husband, and we always looked and compared it and managed the money together. I've also have used Excel, where I would actually take my bank statement that I received every month. I would take my credit card statement, and I would create columns in Excel, and I would compare and track all of my expenses every single month to make sure that I was not overspending and that I was creating a surplus to try to pay off the debt. Because I told you at the very beginning, we were like $25,000 in debt, and I just needed to help us come up with a way to get rid of that debt. Another thing you can do is, as time progressed, I started using QuickBooks and Quicken. There's financial software that you can use and buy, and use that to be able to track your expenses of your household items. And then also now things have gotten to the point where your bank may have an application that you can use. Rarely do I send out checks anymore. The majority of what I do is I pay all of our bills online. All right. Okay, so creating a surplus. So in the example above, I had a surplus of $9.75. So how can you create a bigger surplus, right? Okay, so there's several ways that you can create a bigger surplus. You can reduce your fixed and variable spending. So go through, monitor and track what you're spending, and look at ways to reduce your spending. All right. You could take on a part-time job, or you can open a business. A lot of times you can get into selling different products. Like I used to sell Pampered Chef. That was one of the things I did. And I did that because, number one, I made a little bit of money off of selling the product. And then I told you when I first got married, we didn't have hardly anything. So I saw that as a way to get kitchen supplies, to get cooking supplies. If I sold Pampered Chef, then they'd give me all these products at a reduced cost. And, so I'd have the garlic press, and I'd have the stoneware, and I'd have the fancy little bread pans and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I decided I would sell, at nighttime when I got off work, I'd sell Pampered Chef, because I would go to my friends and have parties and then get all these neat little cooking gadgets. Another thing you can do is refinance your debt. So Thomas and I did a consolidation loan, and we did that, and actually was able to reduce, number one, the interest rate we were paying out on our debt. And then we were also able to reduce the monthly payment that we were paying. So it never hurts to check all of your options. You may also decide to have a yard sale and get rid of some of your things. So there's lots of different ways that you can create a surplus to try to make money. Now, I will tell you this, we talked about our spouses and how we're all different. So whereas I enjoy tracking pennies, my husband will not be tamed, meaning he is not going to allow me to tell him that he has to track pennies. That just is not going to work. So we had to come up and agree to a plan. So basically, I knew, I was going to take my peanut butter and jelly sandwich to work so that I could help save some money. But he was not going to have any part of that. He was used to eating out and he was going to eat lunch out every day. And I was not going to be able to convince him differently. So we had to agree to certain amounts. So I had to, say, okay, it's okay as long as you don't go over $25 a week eating out, that's fine. That'll be your little bit of enjoyment. And there was a reason too. His job, he inspects restaurants. And that's what he was doing. And so he was not able, it was just difficult to pack a lunch every single day. And he was going into all sorts of restaurants, inspecting them. And so it was hard for him to actually have a meal at the same place every day and to take something in and keep it in the refrigerator. So it was kind of unreasonable. So we just came up with a plan. He was able to eat out, and I didn't necessarily eat out, but I have a love of reading. So I would be able to go buy books. That's what I used to do a lot, and I still love reading. And so we just compromised together on how we were going to come up with a plan to save money. All right. What's one of the things you do with your surplus? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to create an emergency fund, okay? And I have a lot of Dave Ramsey's books. He actually has a program as well. He offers a program to teach financial planning and to teach you how to budget and how to look at various things in a financial capacity to help you be successful with your finances. And he talks about having $1,000 emergency fund. So now you can create whatever emergency fund you feel is reasonable for yourself. But an emergency fund is something that's the first thing you do when you want to get out of debt, because the emergency fund is used just for what it's called, emergencies. So if you need tires on your car, like if you get a flat tire and it's a nail and it can't be repaired, then you can go into your emergency fund and pay for that instead of pulling out your credit card. Let's say somebody gets sick and has to go to the emergency room and you have to pay to the deductible, for the emergency room visit. You can use your emergency fund for that. Let's say your child is in an auto accident, which happened, to us. My daughter, had an emergency where she had an auto accident, and we had to come up with a deductible to cover the cost of fixing her car. So all of those things you can do with the emergency fund, okay? But the best thing after you've got your emergency fund in place is to use your surplus to pay off your debt, all right? So what is the cost of debt? For most of us, when financial pressures arise, the credit card comes out. That's the first way we're going to pay for it, because we've really not set aside that emergency fund. And of course, we're all at different places in our lives financially. We're not all at the same place. So some of you may be well on your way and have your emergency fund, but sometimes you don't. And that's okay, because we're not looking back. We're not talking about all the mistakes we've made. We're looking forward to what changes can we make today to improve our financial situation. All right. So when you pull out your credit card, because that's the first thing that comes to mind to cover your expense, you're going to slide further and further into debt, and it's going to make it harder to pay off. So typical debt solutions that a lot of us have used over the years are bill consolidation loans. We will go get additional credit cards. So I have known people that do that. They max their credit card out. So they think, well, I really want this TV, or I really want this furniture, or I really want this Apple iPhone. So they'll go get an additional credit card so that they can pay for it on credit card, or they'll go to the Verizon store and get a credit card so they can get what they want electronically. Sometimes you'll take out a second mortgage, and so that you can have certain things, and you'll or you use a home equity line, or get a second job. So there's lots of different ways that we can use to deal with our debt. But it's very important that we realize debt can cost us relationships. They can cost us peace. Having debt can cost happiness. It can cost time. So while those solutions we just talked about only provide temporary relief, you've really got to address the core of the problem. And the core of being in a lot of debt has to do with spending more money than the monthly income that you have coming into your home. Okay? Most of the time, debt requires interest payments. You have an amortization schedule. Now, this is your friend, the amortization schedule. Okay, so if there's anything I learned in college is what the importance of an amortization schedule is. So when you run an amortization schedule, it's going to provide you the details of interest payments made in regards to your debt. And there's lots of different financial websites that you can use to find various amortization calculators. So I know we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I've actually used Credit Karma. I've used Bankrate. You know, just go on there and just Google amortization schedules and you'll have a plethora of information that you can choose from. So what I want to point out is if you have $100,000 in principal. So let's say you get a small little townhouse or a little condo or something, and it's $100,000. If you are paying on that for 30 years at a 3% interest rate, because that's kind of where the rates are right now, you will have paid $51,777.45 in interest. So for that $100,000 you borrowed, you're actually paying $152,000. All right. So we want to create a plan to eliminate debt. So the first thing we want to do is pay off the smallest debt first with the surplus money. All right. And once the first debt is paid off, we want to apply any available surplus to the next debt, including the money we used to pay the first debt. All right. So here I've created just a list of various debts with interest rates. Right? So we have a home mortgage, $125,000. Again, it's like a tiny little place. School loans, because most of us have school loans, 2 credit cards, a car loan. These are just things that generally we have, you know, and obviously we're all at various places. But what I wanted to do is I went and ran an amortization schedule for all of these items, all of these debts. I plugged in the interest rate. I plugged in the principal of the loan. I plugged in the time value, right? And then I calculated the interest. So as you can see, principal loans, the amount of principal, $170,000 over time is going to cost you interest of $104,000. So that's a lot of money that you are giving away to whoever you've borrowed the money from. All right. So what we want to talk about is a plan to pay off and eliminate our debts. And I want to talk about so Thomas and I, and we'll get to it at the end, we've done lots of these suggestions. We've used them all. And one of the things that we did, not recently, but a while back, last time the rates dropped, and the rates are pretty low right now, we refinanced our home mortgage and we saved ourselves $90,000 in interest just by refinancing. And that's one of the things we'll talk about. But a lot of times, unless you put it down on paper and use your pen and look at what you're doing, you're really not even truly thinking about the money that is leaving your hands and going to the lender until you really sit down and evaluate it. And so right here, I actually wanted to just kind of show a way that you can snowball your debt. So you have this home mortgage of $125,000. Okay. Again, rates are pretty low. I just used a 4% interest rate for 30 years. I did an amortization schedule off of one of those financial websites. And the cost of interest for this loan was $89,836. Okay. The school loan, $30,000 school loan over 10 years, because that normally federal loans, you have 10 years to pay them off. The cost of interest was $9,967. All right. Credit card. These are revolving, credit cards are revolving credit. So it's not an installment loan like a home mortgage or a school loan, but because I wanted to be able to give an example for you all about interest, I just assumed, okay, I'm going to give it 5 years. So, and that's one of the things Thomas and I did way back in our early 30s is we sat down and we come up with a plan for when we wanted to get out of debt and how we wanted to get out of debt and how quickly we wanted to try to get rid of those credit cards. And so for the first credit card for $4,500, and if you look at your interest rate, you really need to, I mean, there are some huge ones. You know, it's nothing for JCPenney's or Sears or Bed Bath & Beyond, any of those places that have credit cards. It's nothing for you to pay anywhere from 17 to 25% interest. Okay, so you need to really understand what your interest rates are. But so this particular one at 17% interest rate, the cost of interest is $2,200. For this credit card, $1,000 at 13% interest rate over 5 years, the cost is $365. A car loan, 7% car loan, and of course, all that varies based off of your credit and your credit history. So, you know, if you have a 7% car loan and you owe $10,000 on your car, and you have a 5-year note, again, that's $1,800 in interest. So borrowing $170,000 here will result in you paying an additional $104,000 in interest. So let's talk about how you snowball it. All right. So in this example, I've color coded it just to try to help you see, you know, rather quickly what's going on. Let's say we pay these two debts off first. We pay our $4,500 off and we pay our $1,000 off. Okay. And so those two together equal $134. The minimum payment going for those two credit cards is $134. Okay. So once those two are paid off, I'm going to take that $134. I'm going to add it to my minimum payment here for this car loan. And I'm going to start paying $332 towards this loan right here for $10,000. Okay. And then once that loan is paid off, I'm going to come up to my next loan, which is my school loan. All right. So I'm going to take, here's my minimum payment for my school loan, $333. I'm going to add what I was paying here. So I'm going to take my $332.60. I'm going to add it to it. And then this is going to be in my new payment. And then I'm going to use that and pay that every single month on my school loan. And then once my school loan is paid off, I'm going to take that $665 and I'm going to add it over here to my home mortgage. And I'm going to pay, instead of paying $596 to my home mortgage, I'm going to pay $1,262. And I'm going to pay that until that particular loan is paid off. And again, I know I got a little bit of mathematical errors going on here, but I can tell you that you will save a ton of money. And the other thing too is once you get in the habit of snowballing your debt, it's not even going to be painful anymore because you've already are committed to paying these bills. So instead of finding something new to purchase when you pay something off, if you're just in the habit of applying that money every single month, before you know it, you're going to be out of debt. All right. Let's see. I actually did some calculations. And so I want to tell you what changes when you pay things off. So I came down here for the car loan. If you took and paid this $332 to your car loan, all right, your cost of interest, instead of being $1,880, you will have paid $1,000. So just by paying that off early, that's going to save you $800. And you would pay it off in 34 months instead of 60 months because 5 years is 60 months. Then if you take, you know, and if you can make this minimum payment, the $556.32, right, your cost of interest, instead of making the minimum payment of $333, your cost of interest is going to be $4,080 instead of $9,900. Okay, and you're going to have it paid off in 52 months versus paying this off in 120 months. With your home mortgage, if you make this extra payment towards your home mortgage, you're going to have that paid off in 121 months versus paying it off in 360 months. So hopefully this example shows you the importance of snowballing your debt, taking your extra surplus, applying it to your debt so that you can be debt free. Okay. And so like I said, you just go online and Google. I have used amortization tables off of creditkarma.com. They've got it at bankrate.com. You can just look and see. There's lots of different websites you can choose from. So one of the things I want to point out is there is always a guaranteed rate of return earned when your debt is paid off. Okay. So right now interest is low. So you're not making very much interest on your savings. Okay. I mean, it's 1%, maybe not even that. But if you have a $10,000 credit card and it has an interest rate of 17%, then when you pay that thing off, you have gotten a 17% rate of return just by paying it off. And the reason is because you are no longer paying that interest to the lender. Okay, so that's very important. Some of the various financial suggestions that I just want to throw out there for you all is buy cars that are a couple of years old and hold on to them for an extended period of time. So this is something my husband and I do. We don't buy new cars anymore. In our entire married life, we've only bought one. And that was when we were young and dumb. So we didn't know any different. But now, and it's because they depreciate. The minute you drive it off the lot, it's going to depreciate. The value of the car is going to go down. And if you were to try to sell that car a couple months later after you bought it, if you got in a bind, you're not going to get the money out of it. So we always buy used cars. Every single car we have owned, except for one car, has been a used car. We get them a couple years old. We get them with low miles, like maybe 20,000, 25,000, and then we hold on to them forever. The last car I got rid of, I had for 10 years, and it was a Buick. It was a very nice car. It lasted me a long time, and I drove that thing until it needed a new engine and a new transmission. Okay. Shop your mortgage rates and refinance when rates go down. So now is the time. The rates are the lowest they have been in years and years and years. And because I shop mine all the time, it wouldn't make any sense for us because our mortgage is almost gone. But if you can go down at least 1% in your rate, you need to shop it and refinance because you can save a lot of money. Like I told you earlier, we saved $90,000 on a mortgage one time just by shopping rates and refinancing. You also want to shop your auto loans for the lowest rates possible. So when we go to get a loan, we will check with USAA because I'm a member of USAA. We'll check with Pentagon Federal Credit Union because I'm a member there as well. We will check with BB&T because we bank with BB&T. So we shop all the rates, and then I pick the one where I can get the lowest rate so that I'm saving myself interest, okay? And then I also always look and run amortization schedules to borrow for the shortest time possible. I will never get a 5 or 6 year loan. So, that's something you need to think about. All right. Here are some other suggestions. Use higher deductibles on your various types of insurance. So on auto insurance, your homeowner's insurance, basically, you've got your emergency fund in place, so use a higher deductible. We use $1,000 on ours because I know if something were to happen, I have my money saved up, and we have more than 1,000 in savings. But the point I'm trying to make is I know I can cover it if something happens because when we increased all of our deductibles on our insurances, it cut our insurance bill in half. So always look at what you can do to reduce your insurance costs if you can take on that liability. If your employer, let's say you are not a state employee and you work for a company that matches 401k, you always want to make sure that you take advantage of an employer retirement match because that's free money to you to go towards your retirement. Okay. One of the things I always do when we get a house is I always try to make a 20% deposit on my home mortgage. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to pay PMI. PMI is private mortgage insurance. So if you have not checked, especially now, because you get a home appraisal, your houses are going to appraise high because it is a seller's market right now. You need to get an appraisal, see if you've got enough value in your home, equity in your home, to drop that PMI, because again, that is surplus money that you can put to reducing your mortgage. And basically, we haven't, I don't know, we've had probably three houses our whole life, of being married. And I only paid PMI on the very first loan we ever had. And like I said, our mortgage is pretty much almost gone. So it can save you a lot of money if you check on dropping your PMI. A 30-year mortgage can be paid off in 15 or 20 years just by paying extra principal each month. So a lot of times, if you find yourself and you have a 30-year mortgage, but you want to pay it off quicker, just pay extra money every single month towards your principal. You can snowball it, just like we talked about at the beginning. A debt consolidation loan can be used to pay off outstanding debt and reduce your overall interest rate. That's one of the things that Thomas and I did early on. Is when I found out, that something like that existed, I immediately took advantage of it to get out of that debt. You can buy items at local consignment sales. You can sell items at a local consignment sale. So in Cumberland County, there's the Hugs and Kisses consignment sale. There is the Twice as Nice consignment sale. They happen a couple times a year. So one of the things I did is I sold a ton of stuff that my daughter had that she grew out of, she no longer needed. And then I also bought things at those consignment sales. You can get clothes for your children very, very, very cheap. So if I could buy a Hollister shirt for $5, I would buy that at the consignment sale. If I, off of my daughter's stuff, I think I made $3,500 total, just selling stuff that she doesn't use anymore. Toys, books, home decor, clothes. So take advantage of that. And then you're also blessing other people. So you're paying it forward. I use coupon apps on my phone. So if I go to Belk's or if I go to Macy's or JCPenney, any of those places, I always go and I'll use the Retail Me Not the phone app to see if there's any coupons at that store. Or I will actually go to the website for the store and use coupons off their website. And I do this all the time. It doesn't cost me anything. It just saves me money. The other thing is buy off of a list. Only use a shopping list. Don't spend money unnecessarily that you don't need to spend. High school connections. This is a big one, okay? And this is through Cumberland County Schools. So get with your guidance counselor at your child's school and talk to them about high school connections. My daughter did this. She went to Fayetteville Tech. And when she finished and graduated, she had a year's worth of college credits. And it didn't really cost us anything because the state legislature has this in place, okay? The other thing that CCS offers, there are early college options that you can do. So there's 3 early colleges that we have in Cumberland County. There's the Cumberland International Early College. There's Cumberland Polytechnic, which is at Fayetteville Tech. Cross Creek Early College, that one, and Cumberland International are on the campus of Fayetteville State University. And that also is so beneficial. Now, there are guidelines for each of these, and you need to get with your guidance counselor at your school and talk about the various options. But if you qualify to be a part of the program at Cumberland International or Cross Creek Early College, you actually, if you stay at Fayetteville State, can get an entire 4-year degree. So you really need to check those options out. The last thing I want to talk about, and one other thing, certified financial planning. That is a suggestion as well. So my husband recently retired from Wake County Environmental Services. And we had to make a decision about what he was going to elect with his retirement, what option he was going to choose. Well, I'm a CPA. I have a graduate degree in business and finance. Okay. But I don't do those I audit. Right now, I'm not in the financial arena. So I always want to encourage you to go to someone who is up to date on all the latest tax laws, whether it's state, whether it's federal, they understand all the implications. They will help you make these important decisions that you need to make that are going to change your life. The last thing I want to talk about is a book, Today Matters. All right. And it's John C. Maxwell is the author. He's a New York Times best-selling author, and he wrote the book Today Matters. It has a 4.5-star rating on Amazon. And in this book, he talks about true growth comes from making decisions and following through on them. Make a good decision, but that good decision doesn't do you any good unless you practice it. All right. You have to make a decision. That's the starting point. But then you have to use discipline to help you reach your goal. If you want to do something great, then you've got to focus on it today. You have to focus on it each and every day. So what is your daily agenda? And he has what he calls the daily dozen. Do you evaluate your priorities daily? Okay. One of the things you have to understand is your life is an accumulation of all of the decisions that you have made up until this point. So where you find yourself out today is based on every decision you made yesterday and the days prior to that. Do you plan your time carefully? Once you plan your time, do you follow your plan? Do you have a good attitude? Okay, so when you get up every day, is every day a Friday for you? Are you someone who is naturally looking at the glass half full instead of looking at the glass empty? Are your priorities in order? Okay. Do you have a list that you look at and focus on to make sure that you're doing what really matters? Do you have anything? Do you do anything to focus on improving your health? Okay, that's a big thing for me right now. I'm trying to get into the habit of doing more exercise because I've noticed as I've gotten older, I've put on a little extra pounds. And so I want to be able to enjoy my grandchildren one day. When my daughter has a family and she starts having children, I want to enjoy my grandchildren. How do you spend time with your family? And do you take time to really think today? All right. Oh, here's a big one. This is what we've been talking about the last 45 minutes. Do you manage your finances wisely? Right? Do you practice your faith? What is it that gives you your resolve? What is it that brings you back to calm? Okay. Do you mentor your relationships? My father passed away a year ago. And, that can be very eye-opening. I mean, we know we're going to lose our parents, but we really don't think about it until they're gone. And so do you have individuals that you love and that are important to you and mean a lot to you? The relationship matters. Are you really taking good care of your relationship? Did you show generosity today? There was a lady, I went before the pandemic, I went to get a barbecue sandwich and I happened to sit at a booth in front of a family. And it was a young girl. She looked like she was in her late 20s, early 30s. And I overheard her telling her parents she was upset and she was crying. And she was talking about how she was going to have her utilities turned off. And I listened to her story, because I was sitting right on the other side. I couldn't help but hear what she was saying. And her parents were encouraging her. They're like, look, you know what? Someone's going to come through for you. You're going to have your utilities paid. God has always met your needs, no matter what they are. Please don't give up on God. And so I turned around and I looked at that young girl. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I said, and I came here today because I was just going to get a sandwich, but really, I came here to bless you. And I had $40 in my wallet. I took out my $40 of cash and I gave it to her. And I said, your needs have been met. So please pay it forward. God does not want you to do without your basic needs. So you never know when an opportunity is going to come up to show generosity. Have you been true to your values today? I always believe in treating people as you want to be treated. So I'm going to always try to be nice. I'm going to always try to be helpful. I'm always going to try to serve you in any capacity that I can, because that's how I want you to treat me. And then also you have to do things to stretch and grow. All right. So I'm always learning. I love to read. I'm an avid reader. So this book right here, Today Matters, I just found it on, now I do have some of his books, but I didn't know anything about this one. But I found it on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and Google it, you can listen to the audio book of this. And he talks about the daily dozen. So this is something that I've recently, within the last couple months, started really thinking about on a daily basis. Okay. So the last one is, have you followed through on your commitments? So it doesn't do any good to come up with a plan, but not follow through with it. And I want to leave you with this. Always remember, money cannot bring happiness. You have to live for what matters the most. So what lifestyle do you really want? Okay. And how do you want to spend your dash? So the dash is that period of time that you're here on earth. So, are you spending your dash well? So I want to finish with the rest of my story. Let's see. Basically what it is, I'm probably going to have to say it from memory, is the gentleman comes in and he's talking about selling the popcorn. And he says, if you sell more popcorn, then you can take and open up more stands. And then once you open up more stands, you can create a franchise with your popcorn business. And once you create a franchise with your popcorn business, then you can sell the franchise, go home, sit on your porch, and sip tea with your wife. And so the little man, the vendor, looks at the guy. He says, well, why do I want to go to all of that trouble when today I can close my stand, I can go home, I can sit on my front porch and sip tea with my wife? And so where do you want to focus? Do you want to focus on bigger is better? Do you want to focus on realizing you're blessed today and you just want to get out of debt so you can help others? There's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with being successful, but you have to decide at what cost. So I want to encourage you to take back today and decide how you're going to spend it. And the last thing I want to say, and I'm going to turn it back over to Miss George, is what are you teaching your children? Your children are watching you. They're watching your spending patterns. They're watching how you live. Are you teaching them to be generous? Are you teaching them to love others? Are you teaching them to be materialistic? You are the ones that are training up the next generation. So what do you want to leave for them? And that is it.
Wow, that was a great session. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our Throwback Thursday Cumberland Family Academy session. Each week, we look forward to bringing you information and resources. So if you enjoyed watching tonight's session, be sure to visit our website at www.familyacademy.ccs.k12.nc.us. There, you will find additional sessions and information and even resources to help you help your child in school and in life. Thank you again for joining us.